how do we get those shots? How do we go about getting the best look at that perspective, but two airplanes in flight? That's where somebody as talented as you comes in. You're basically a dolly driver.
Hello and welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Jeff Senour. I'm your host today. On our show, we like to feature extraordinary people doing amazing things. And today I have not only an amazing person, but a good friend as well. I've known him many years. He's a dear friend. He's like family to me. And he's got an amazing story as well. And I'd like to please welcome my guest, Mr. Dan Wolfe.
Awesome.
Dan, it's good to have you.
It's good to be here, Jeff.
And I can't thank you enough for coming. We go way back. I started out flying years ago at Van Nuys Airport. You were in the movie photography industry, and we met along the way, and we'll get into that. But I want to hear your story, because I've never really had a chance to ever sit down with you and talk about the Dan Wolfe. You know, how did Dan Wolfe get to here? You're a producer, you're a director, a major still photographer in the industry, which we'll talk about. I know you did Denny's, Kawasaki, Baskin Robbins as a still photographer. You know, some amazing credits, and you're also in aviation. But tell me a little bit about how you got started, where'd you grow up? I think Pasadena, right? Or
yeah, I grew up in Southern California in general, lived all over the place in Southern California, but Pasadena is my home, and I gravitate back to there. I love Pasadena. Mm-hmm. I bought a really big hangar, a beautiful hangar that used to be Jack Northrop's world headquarters, and they gave birth there to everything from the flying wing to the B-2 bomber, right on the very ground that I own now, and it's just super cool. But when I did that, everybody said, well, of course you're going to get a place at the beach now because you're living very close to the beach. And I'm not leaving Pasadena. I love it over there.
And we'll talk about, I've got some fond memories with you in Pasadena, which I can talk about later. But we've operated, I'm the pilot of several of your aircraft over the years, the Learjet and the helicopter. I flew Channel 9 News in your helicopter. And the Learjet, how we met was through a gentleman named Bob Netman years ago, and he invented a pretty unique system. Tell the audience about vector vision.
Okay, yeah. Meeting Bob was closed a whole bunch of kind of quests that I had. I started out in photography as I was for sure going to be a famous fashion photographer, because that was what I thought I would do. I
visited your studios years ago. You had these big giant white, like you could run into the wall and not know it's there. Those big white, coves, sets that you had, right. And yeah,
they work for everything. You know, you can put a motorcycle in there and light it and make all the reflections and shadows and stuff go away by lighting in a cyclorama, it's called, or a cyc. At any rate, yeah, I had several cycs in our studio there. We had 5 stages there. And but mostly, strangely enough, I ended up doing food. And all the time I went through Art Center, I never did a food picture. I thought, who in the world would ever want to shoot food? It's just tedious, and you're in there doing this stuff and trying to make something look good and encourage somebody to pick that up and put it in their mouth. And I'm thinking, I never want to do that. And then I came to realize you can't do fashion in Los Angeles.
Okay.
You have to be in New York. So, and I didn't want to live in New York. I went there and I tried it out and it didn't like it. So I came back and then we were offered a food thing, and it was just bizarre. I took off in the food industry, and like you said, Denny's and Sizzler and McDonald's and Baskin Robbins and on and on. And
you had full kitchens too, industrial kitchens.
You have to have big kitchens.
I remember that.
And I'd have several shoots going on at the same time. So
and you used to spray the food with like lacquer and different.
We do some pretty weird stuff to food to make it look appetizing, but you can't. I won't use. I guess I'll use the word lie. You can't lie in advertising. You have to use the real stuff. So when you're shooting for Baskin Robbins, it has to be Baskin Robbins product.
Right.
And if
how do you shoot ice cream? Because it
Ice
melts.
cream is really challenging,
It melts.
is the bottom line. It melts super
Yeah.
fast. And the whole thing about ice cream is that that tear that you get in it when you make a scoop, that's the part that has the appetite appeal, how the light hits that and all that.
Really?
And that melts very fast because that's just
Right.
little pieces of stuff sticking out into space. So it's very tricky and it's a lot of fun. Sometimes you put a piece of dry ice in the very center of that and let it emanate from the inside, the coldness. But then
Wow.
you're blowing stuff off the, that's a
That's
whole story in
interesting.
itself.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
But so you can see how I gravitated toward shooting anything but food.
Mm-hmm.
And aviation has been my love forever. Started flying when I was very young and got my license just before I turned 20 and started flying everything I could and love helicopters the best. And I
Yeah.
know you love helicopters as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to get you back in
I'm ready.
helicopters. But
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have you back flying Lear. This little thing you had on the side, being an airline captain for
Yeah, that
25
airline
years.
career
Yeah.
got in the way for a while. Yeah.
I'm glad it's out of the way and out of your system because we love you doing what you're doing, and our clients love you as well.
Well, it's an honor to and explain. You know, when I talk to people about the aerial photography, most of the audiences, and this is Backstage Pass, right? So most of the audiences don't know how a lot of that works. Like when I sit in the audience and I see a jet flying on camera, you don't even think about it.
You do
how
not.
those
That's
shots are
correct.
obtained.
That's right.
So I'll let you
Well,
explain how we do
All right,
that.
well, meeting Bob Netman was a big deal about that because I was challenged with that too. How do we get those shots? How do we go about getting the best look at that perspective, two airplanes in flight, sort of choreographed on one another? That's where somebody as talented as you comes in, is that you're basically a dolly driver. That's a really important thing on any movie set. When we're shooting food in the studio, for instance, that dolly driver is moving that camera from here to here, and you're just a guy pulling a big thing, and that sometimes makes or breaks the shot. In aviation, it's the pilot that's making all that magic happen, and that communication between the cameraman, the director, and the pilot is
yeah, it's
really,
an amazing.
really important.
It's a rush for me, I'll tell you.
Well, the camera gear itself is super important, and Bob Netman is a genius that invented various sophisticated
5 Academy
camera
Awards,
systems.
I think he won.
Lots of Academy Awards
Yeah.
for technical achievement, and it's just the best of the best. He thinks of it. He listens to a director and everybody. He listens to their perspective and figures out how to make his camera gear work that way. So he invented originally a thing called Astrovision, which was an inferior version of the system. And then when he came out with Vector Vision, there's another whole story that goes with that, which you were in the trenches of as well. Mm-hmm. But Vector Vision is the way to shoot air-to-air cinematography. It's an optical relay system. The camera actually lives inside the airplane. Several cameras live inside the airplane.
Right.
One of them goes through a belly port, one of them goes through a top port, one of them is in the nose, and we have another one that's under the wing. So we have a bunch
Which looks
of
like a
camera
bomb,
positions.
by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks pretty scary, our Learjet. In fact, we got, you don't know about this one, but Tom, one of our other pilots, got stuck over in Russia for a while because it was coming back from a shoot in, I think it was in the Philippines somewhere, and we had to jump over Russia, and we had to land in Russia, and they looked at this thing, and first of all, I love making my airplanes look beautiful too. It's one of my hang-ups. So the Lear is a really cool looking Learjet. It's dark gray.
Looking.
It is. And it looks like a military jet in a lot of ways. And then we have stuff bolted on the wings that looks scary as well. So they didn't know what to make of that. So they held us over there for a while they figured out that we were just a bunch of Hollywood guys making pretty pictures. And we finally got released from there. So getting hooked up with Bob was a really big deal, and we got to fine-tune his system. Bob is in the process of retiring right now, so I bought all the gear from him, and we continue using that. There's other people that are now putting gyro-stabilized gimbals on jets, the real way to do it is to be in the jet, mounted to the jet, so that becomes the tool, is the airplane.
I explain to people it's like a periscope through the belly and one through the ceiling, and it's, you know, the subject airplane, and this is us. We are that dolly. By throttling back, we make nose crosses, so you get these sweeping, beautiful shots of, you know, it's like a God's eye view in the sky. And I've been honored. I've actually taken that airplane. We went to Africa, did a job, spent a month in Africa filming Mount Kilimanjaro and Victoria Falls. We went to Australia, filmed the Barrier Reef with an airline down there. And I think we should maybe take a quick peek. You know, let's see real quickly what some of the shots look like. We've actually had the honor, too, of working on movies like True Lies, Executive Decision, lots of feature films. The stories are kind of endless.
They truly are.
You know, as the pilot, I know I've been asked to be, you know, well, we want this shot. Well, you know, safety is always first and foremost. We've had directors say, hey, I want this shot. I'm like, no, we can't physically do that because we'll die. And, and so our job is to know where to draw the line of what we can and can't get, but the images are amazing. And so it's cool to let the audience know what when they're sitting in the theater or watching a commercial, how they got that shot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. You know, when Silence of the Lambs, you were on that.
Yeah,
shoot,
Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the film was done, and I got a call from the DP on the film. The guy that shot the film was Tak Fujimoto, a friend of mine, and he called me up. He said, "We have this film, and it looks really good. We all looked at it last night, and it's all ready to be." And Orion is in bankruptcy right now. We're about to release this thing. There's no money, and we came to realize there's a missing shot, that this particular sequence doesn't work, and we need to get a shot. And what would it cost to set the Learjet up and take it out and do a quick shot of a C-130, doing a couple of quick moves? And I said, we can do that. We need to do it when we're coming back from a shoot, because the airplane's already prepped, the whole crew's there. We can make that happen. So they put it all together, and we went
Joined
up and
with
did
the
that.
C-130,
Yeah, do you remember doing that? Okay, so
absolutely. And
Jonathan Demme came to the shoot. Jonathan, who directed the film. The film ended up being Best Picture that year, and I figure it was Best Picture for the 4.5 seconds that we had on the screen, because the movie didn't work without it, right? So I said to Tak, I said, you're coming on the shoot, right? He said, I'm not getting in that Learjet with you crazy guys.
Yeah.
So he says, and so he just said, you guys go up and do it. Get this, and this, and whatever you want to add to it. So we went up to do it. Well, Jonathan shows up at the shoot, and I went, you don't really want to go on this shoot. You're going to get airsick. I almost promised it. Dan, I've never been airsick in my life.
Right.
And I said,
famous
okay,
last words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because, as you know, we're
pulling some Gs.
You do the shot, and you're over here, and then this airplane goes up here, and it's a dot in the sky.
We got to go get him.
Because the sun's going down, and you got to match that light.
Right.
So and all of a sudden your stomach goes clear over here somewhere, and then it comes back up through your nose and up here, and then you're set up for the next shot where he breaks the other way, and then all of that stuff becomes the
And
magic.
you're limited to the fuel in the gas tank, so you got to work quick.
And you got boom, 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 everything has to go. And I had told Jonathan, and he had to sit sideways in the lovingly known as the potty seat in the Learjet. It sits sideways in there. If the cushion comes out, it's a potty seat with the cushion in. It's just a sideways seat. So I'm looking at him while we're doing it. I'm sitting back there with Bob Maynard was shooting that, I believe, and he said, And I looked up at him, and he's got
Green.
his face buried in the air. He wouldn't take the air sick bag from me, and I said, "You definitely need this. Just hold on to it. So then he was buried in that thing, and I watched the whole thing.
And we don't stop for people. We have to keep working, you know.
We got to get the shot.
That's like, I remember when we did True Lies, you know, some of those amazing stories, like we spent a couple weeks down in the Keys filming True Lies, and James Cameron is the director, and he's in the back, you know, and they wanted to do this shot where the Harrier blows up the bridge and blows up the truck on the bridge, and so they angled these charges in the water. And I told him the timing of it and the angling, and we're doing 300 knots and on formation with this jet, and I said, I'd like to rehearse this, you know, and he says, you can rehearse it as much as you want, but when you say you're ready, it better be right.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, okay, it's James Cameron, you know?
Right.
So, but anyway.
Well, seeing him when he was getting off the jet every time I was on the ground for that one because he's the director, he's going to go along as the director, and so he would get out with the air sick bag each time, you know, and I asked you, I said, so when is he getting sick? I mean, is it like when you're doing the maneuver? He said, nah, basically when we get airborne. So I started talking, I said, you got to try this and this and this, and we got him, so he wasn't getting airsick anymore. But I said, you are a real trooper to keep going up there when it makes you sick every time. And he said, I've got to be there, that's where the shot's happening. Yeah. And he was right, I mean, he had to be there, and so it was a fun film. That was a fun film.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, Silence of the Lambs. I remember we went to lunch afterwards with, I think it was Tack, and then we were kind of like, what is this movie? Oh, it's this FBI, Jodie Foster plays. It was a sleeper. And then it became.
He kills people.
Right,
he eats them.
right.
He said, oh, that's going to do well.
Yeah, we were like, whatever. This is, you know, but in here it was Best Picture. Yeah, I think it got Best Picture, right?
It was a beautiful film.
It was, yeah. So, where did you grow up? I don't even.
I grew up in Pasadena, basically.
Okay.
Went to school there.
And then I heard you were in a boys' home growing up as a young man.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You know, my parents were divorced when I was young, and me and my two brothers ended up there. And actually, it was kind of a cool upbringing because I was with 120 other boys from different walks of life and so on, and it was a really good upbringing, I think. I think it broadened.
Was it in Pasadena?
It was in the valley, in Sherman Oaks, and that's where whatever they call it now, it's a big shopping center now.
Wow.
Bullock's was there, and all of those. Fashion Square, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That was where McKinley Home was, and then it moved to San Dimas, but the whole time I was there, it was in Sherman Oaks. Yeah,
and then your daughter Beth is now running the Vector Vision aerial camera work side of everything, and who I'm getting to work with again. And it's funny because I remember meeting Beth. She was, I think, she'll hate me for saying this, but she must have been about somewhere in here, this high. She was I think 11 or 12 years old, and now here she is. So to me, this whole journey that you've had, it's about living your dreams. It's about striving. But I know you've gone through some ups and downs. You know, it's not easy keeping airplanes around and all of that. So when people see the Dan Wolfe up here, they don't know what it took to get there. And that's really what we're about, is inspiring others to think the same way. Go achieve, go live your dreams, go become great at whatever it is you desire to do. But you're going to fail along the way. It's going to happen.
Absolutely, and you learn the most from failure, is the truth of the matter, if you're paying attention. And that's what I suggest everybody does, is pay attention to their failures much more than their major accomplishments, because the failures will teach you how to have the major accomplishments. I taught at Art Center. I don't know if you know that.
I do.
I taught up there for
Pasadena
a dozen
Art Center,
years.
Right,
I graduated from Art Center and then was invited back to sort of give back to the school. And it was a great experience. Teaching was a great experience. And it's the best school of its type in the world. All automotive designers, or 98% of them or so, come from Art Center and then take all the fields, from fine arts to photography to film direction to graphic design to advertising design. That's all Art Center stuff. And it's a great school, and I still go up there once in a while and talk to the students and stuff like that. I love the school. It's on the same hillside that I
Right.
live on, overlooking the Rose Bowl there in Pasadena.
Well, you're an inspiration to all of us, Dan, and I can't thank you for the journeys you've afforded me in my life and what you've affected my life in so many ways. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. It really means a lot, and
No, that's
and it's
awesome.
just
Well,
fun to
thank you.
have you. So
I'm happy that I
thank
got to
you,
do it.
and
All
we'll
right.
do it again.
Awesome.
So we'll
Sounds
be up
good.
in the air soon.
I like it. Let's do it.
Folks, thanks again for tuning in, and welcome to Backstage Pass. Come back next time. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next pass. Thanks again.